How's it going, folks? Stu here. What a knee slap. You must have heard that. That was a slap that was heard around the world. It's suddenly become an amazing time for horror films at the cinema. I caught one of those films this week, which happened to be one of the more anticipated films I've been waiting on for a while because it had been pushed back since last year for reasons you can absolutely guess. That film was The Night House, in which Rebecca Hall goes a bit nuts in a house. Don't worry, Rebecca, we've all been there. Although how come when Rebecca does it, it's a horror film, and when I do it, it's how did you get in my house, put some clothes on, what are you doing, I'm calling the police. Double standards or what? That's right, The Night House is finally in cinemas. I saw it. I shit my pants. The end. The Night House is the latest horror film from director David Bruckner, who you might know as the guy behind The Ritual, which was a Netflix horror film which came out however many years back. Good little gem, that. Good enough for me to go, I want to see more of this guy's stuff. Cut to now, seeing more of this guy's stuff. This was a cracking time. Simply put, it is a story of a widow who starts to learn some dark secrets about her husband while she's alone in a house. The Night House. And I found this to be just a really, really gripping film. Like, right from the get-go, I was invested in the story this film lays at your feet. I think one of the reasons it had me so gripped so early on, it has to come down to Rebecca Hall's performance. I mean, she's brilliant in this film. She's very, very good. A lot of the really great stuff she does performance-wise comes towards the end of the film, which I'm not going to go into details on because I don't want to spoil anything. But she's also just a very likable lead. Like, right from the get-go, I was on board with her. I understood what she was about, how she was feeling, how she was doing. How she was doing. So like I'm her best friend now. And it sounds like a very simple thing, but you'd be surprised at how often films, especially horror films, tend to just not get this right at all. But the story she's in, I found to be really, really interestingly woven. Like, it's a very layered horror film where you think you're watching one thing and it'll throw something else in the mix, and then it'll throw something else in the mix. It can be very easy for horror films, I think, to slip up when they do that. You know, one thing too many, you're like, oh, come off it, mate, I'm not here for this. But I think it's a testament to the direction and the screenplay and the performance as well, that The Night House never really stumbles from that. I was constantly like, oh, that's really cool, or oh, that's really fucking scary. Why? I don't want to do this. And it is a scary film. I think it's difficult to say that about horror films, because when you hear that about a horror film, you do get certain expectations. You know, it's why when certain horror films are like marketed as the scariest film that's ever made, there's no way a film can live up to that, right? Because scariness is very subjective, so no doubt there are people that watch this film and are like, didn't find it that scary. That's fine. I did find it really scary. I guess it's more of a kind of tense or atmospheric scariness than it is vivid sort of imagery that sticks with you. But I do think it is also a film which knows how to have fun with itself. And I don't mean fun in the sense that like it's funny or it's ever like loop-de-doo-ba-de-doo, let's go. You know, it's not a fun film at any point. But from a directing point, there is a sort of playfulness to the way it approaches some of the scares in here. Like, it's got some big, loud, borderline obnoxious jump scares, but the way that David Bruckner handles those jump scares is much more satisfying than I've seen jump scares done elsewhere. I think it's almost a cliche in itself at this point for people to be like, that film was bad because it had jump scares, let's move on. You know, jump scares have a time and a place. This film is maybe exhibit A on how to do them well. A couple of moments in this film absolutely rattled me. You know when you're in a cinema and well, you jump, and fun anecdote. You know when you're in a cinema and a film will make you jump, and it's not just like a that you think you can play off as like, I don't know, a scratch or something. You know, no one wants to be seen as a guy that's leaping around the cinema. Could not hide it with some of the jumps in here. Wingardium Leviosa, who's got their wand out, because I am floating in my seat. But in the moments they happen, they work. They have a purpose. They have a point. It makes sense that it's a jump scare. And that's what I appreciate about David Bruckner's directing. It's what I appreciate about great horror film directors whenever I see them, is they know all the tools in their toolbox that they can use, and they're not afraid to use any of the tools they need to use, but they're always using the right tools for the moment. There are moments which steer clear of feeling a bit too absurd and a bit over the top when I know they could have under lesser directors. And by the time this film hits its climax, I was just, you know when you're just aware that you're locked in, you're like, I'm gripped into my seat right now. I just left feeling very satisfied with the mystery of this film I think it has enough answers, but also enough things that are sort of left open to interpretation for it to really click and feel very satisfying. I know that there are going to be people that are like, I wanted a bit more concreteness in the film, and there are definitely going to be people that are like, I wanted more subtlety or more open to interpretation bits in the film. For me, I think it did land quite nicely in the middle there, which was awesome. And I feel like that mystery serves the themes that this film's trying to explore really, really well. I think it's a very engaging and unique and very creative way of pulling at certain themes that we've seen done in horror before. You know, themes of grief, of letting go, of loss and loneliness. They're by no means totally new, fresh and unique things to see in a horror film, but they are navigated and pulled out interestingly. They're done uniquely in that way, which I thought was really, really engaging. David Bruckner does some really, really interesting, cool shit that I don't think I've seen done like that in a horror film before. Like totally new scares, which I thought was really, really cool. I'm trying to work out how much I can say about that without spoiling things, because I was like, that is cool, and I didn't know that this film was going to be doing shit like that. It's a really interesting use of architecture, is what I'll say. That's not going to make much sense unless you've seen the film. If I had to really pull out anything I felt particularly negative towards in the film, I'd say it probably comes in the form of the secondary characters. Like, for how good Rebecca Hall is and for how great her character is to watch, sometimes it does feel a little bit like all of the secondary characters in this film are almost just sort of stock characters that are dropped in to let things just move on and go forward. Like, there's a neighbor in the film, there's a best friend. Sometimes they do feel a little bit like they're just like, here I am, I'm a secondary character. What do you want to know? How we can get this plot moving along? But even then, it never really gets in the way of what this film's trying to do at any point, because the film knows how much to do of that, and it quickly is just like, let's get back to the really cool shit. So yeah, The Night House really didn't disappoint. I'd heard a lot of good shit about this film. I was very excited to see this film, and I found myself incredibly satisfied with where this film ended up going. But what about you guys? Have you caught The Night House yet? Whatever you thought about it, let me know in the comments down below. We'll have a little chat. Of course, if you enjoyed this video and you want to see me talk about more shit, subscribe. It's right there. Do it. I'll see you guys soon for some more thoughts on some more films. But until then, can someone just go check on Rebecca? Just make sure she's doing all right. She did not look like she was having fun. What's that? It's a film. She's acting, and it's not real.